Alright, so we're on to the next chapter. Quick recap. Um, they had a confrontation with Vale's late wife. They followed them to a club, saved some guy from being drained by two vampires. She chased one of the vampires through the club, and then, after telling us that she killed her best friend, who had turned into a vampire, she killed the vampire. Chapter 12. I pushed the magic button, stowed grief inside my jacket, and hoofed it back to Club Undead in time to see Liliana and the Liliettes climb back into the limo. Aiden Straight had joined them, making chummy with Liliana like they were long-lost pals. I started to go for my car, realized it was gone. Vale had carried Derek Steele off to the hospital in it, leaving me temporarily stranded. Derek Steele, I snorted. Sounds like the hero in a really raunchy Harlequin novel. I've seen the names in those novels. That's nearly not crazy enough. Only none of those heroes ever found themselves donating blood in dark alleyways. Hey. Now I'm going to find a Harlequin novel where that happens, because I'm sure that happens. As if opening a vein in the comfort of your putrid pink hotel room makes you better somehow. No, I'm a hero. A couple of die-hard fun-seekers gave me a strange look as they passed. Great, now I'm standing out in a crowd. Man, am I slipping. It did feel that way, like all the layers I'd managed to stitch together to form my so-called life had shifted. Now nothing seemed to line up. I suddenly felt ancient, a tired old antique resting on the sidewalk along with the metal trash cans. My knees quivered with the effort it took to stand up. Drained, as if a bad flu had grabbed me and shaking me till my brain rattled, I decided to find a better place to collapse than on the corner of Washington Avenue. I hailed a cab and sit in, giving the driver, who looked like he'd just gotten off El Rafto Cubano. That's not okay. Don't do that. Directions to one of our backup hidey holes. I called Vale on my cell phone. Lucille? He answered on the first ring. Only people who care answer on the first ring. What if you're busy? Sometimes people call me and I'm doing other things. I mean, I care. The thought made me tear up, which made me consider slapping myself. What had happened to the thick-skinned agent who yelled at old ladies and stonewalled handsome young admirers? I'm beat. My bruised ribs and cut-up lip began to ache, as if even I needed proof before I could give myself a break. I'm going to crash at the condo until you've finished with your business. Can you pick me up there? Certainly. Is everything okay? Fine. Meaning he'd handled Boris easily. Good. We are just pulling up to the emergency room. I will probably see you in an hour or two. Sounds good. Drive safe. He sighed, knowing I really meant take care of my Mercedes. We hung up, and I spent the rest of the drive wondering exactly what kind of world had just opened up to me. It was as if my senses, two of them at least, had undergone a major upgrade. I could see a whole new spectrum of light, and I could sense great imbalances in human health. Now if I could only hear through brick walls, I'd make a great sideshow for Barnum and Bailey. The cab dropped me at the Star One Resort, a multi-level apartment building right on the beach. Most of the apartments were timeshares, so if I ran into anybody in the commons or the elevator, they wouldn't raise an eyebrow at the presence of a stranger. The lock on the door looked intimidating. A metal-faced number pad with a digital readout prevented easy access, unless you had the right fingerprint. I did. I pressed my thumb on the small sensor pad next to the hatch. The tumblers tumbled, and I stumbled in, swinging the door shut behind me. The room looked much better than the bubblegum bordello. The walls had been painted off-white. Evie would have called it something romantic, like ivory lace. The chocolate-brown furniture felt like velvet, and the dark gold carpet complemented the gold fleur-de-lis in the red wine curtains. Dark gold carpet? Sorry, I'm just trying to picture this room in my head. I opened them and saw a small balcony overlooking the ocean. Nice view if you had the time to enjoy it. I shook my boots and socks and plopped onto the couch, promising myself to try out the matching chair and ottoman before I left. And maybe, if Dawn caught us here, I'd explore the garden too. It was on the roof and easily accessed from the bedroom by means of a stairway that hid behind the closet door. That extra escape route was what had sold us on this place. Never mind waiting till dawn. And just rest here for a minute, then I'll check out the garden. I closed my eyes, breathing deeply the smells of recycled air, just the right temperature, and apple cinnamon plugins. I admit it. I blew it. I should have stayed awake, done some brainstorming, solved the mystery, and got myself a Scooby snack. Instead, my sleep-deprived body yelled, "Break time!" and all systems hit pause. I dream vividly every time I sleep. Even my power naps remind me of Super Bowl commercials. This time I dreamed of Granny Mae, not as I remember her, wearing faded jeans and bulky sweaters that made her extra huggable, but as I imagined her, winged and haloed, living it up with Grandpa Lou, who, I was sure, had met her at the pearly gates with a bowl of popcorn and a Frank Sinatra movie. We talked like a couple of beauticians, and she said a lot of things I couldn't recall later on, though I knew they were important. I do remember feeling a feeling of deep, resounding contentment, the kind you mostly lose after the age of 6. Then her face took on a look I recognized, but not from her. Suddenly she resembled my mom when I was about to hear the words, "granted for life." The contentment fled, and I began to feel a familiar prickling sensation in my fingers and toes. "It's not your time," Granny Mae snapped. "Wake up." I opened my eyes, I stood, I damn near saluted. I guess it's true that old habits die hard. So do old field agents. As soon as I recognized my magical arm had not been dreamed, I spun to face the source of the power that had tripped it. The balcony doors flew open, and I could actually see the glass shivering as the doorframe hit the wall. In walked Vale's former wife. So much for it being secure. "You sure know how to make an entrance," I said. It sounded calm, amused. It was a total scam, and the scowl on Liliana's face told me she'd bought it. Good. It might give me a couple of extra steps when I turned to run. Okay, if I turned to run. I hadn't made up my mind on that yet. "It's one of my finer qualities." "How did you find me?" "Your trail glows brighter than neon," she said, smiling as she saw the barb hit. "Shit, I was like the Texas Hold'em pro all the amateurs enjoyed meeting. I'd attracted a shadow, and I hadn't even noticed. Is it time for vacation?" I didn't think Liliana badly wanted to call me a candy ass, but just didn't have the phrase at the tip of her tongue, so she went straight to the point. "You have something that belongs to me." She suddenly developed an accent. She must really be pissed. I snuck a look at my watch. Vale might be on his way, but he wouldn't get here in time to back me up, much less thank me, and I didn't much savor the thought of him scraping me off the carpet. What to do? What to do? My nerves were running around like earthquake victims, screaming hysterically and rhyming into each other, causing no end of damage and helping me not one damn bit. I'm sure something better would have fit here. "Everything I have is mine," I told her. Wrong thing to say. Her eyes, including the whites, turned the bright red of fresh blood. Her hands twitched, and I realized those perfect store-bought nails doubled as covers for retractable claws. They grew, even as I watched, to letter opener length. I knew they'd slice through skin just as easily as they'd cut paper. This is where we fundamentally disagree. She moved forward and to her left, intending to block my exit. Evidently, she couldn't visualize me jumping off the balcony. It seemed like a bad plan to me as well. My adrenaline had almost deserted me. I'm so tired, almost too tired to be scared. Almost. "I don't know what you mean," I replied. As she moved, I did too, maintaining the distance between us as I inched closer to the bedroom door. "Cyrili." She pointed to the ring on my right hand, her claws shaking with the force of her anger. "It is mine." Vale told me his family made it for him. "I am his family," she spat. "It's my right to wear Vale's ring." She took a step forward, and I pulled grief. It was still in gun mode, but it stopped her, for now. So of course I egged her on. "You're not his wife anymore, Liliana. You're not even his avar. The ring is mine, and I'm keeping it." She screamed, like a banshee, on uppers, caught in a vice. Okay. I'm going to read this exactly how it's written, okay? Ready? She screamed, like a banshee, on uppers, caught in a vice. They're all individual sentences. I don't know what she's trying to emphasize. That's really, really fucking stupid. I shot her as she charged, 3 times. Bam, 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 in a nice tight pattern in the chest. Bright red blood splattered the walls behind her as she fell backward. She hit the dining room table on her way down. It teetered and crashed sideways under the impact. It used the extra time it gave me to turn and run. So here's my question. These guys are vampires, right? They're dead. So is the blood that's in them that comes out when they're hurt like the blood that they drink of others? But then that would go to their stomach, right? Unless they have a different anatomy that we don't know about. because I don't think vampires would have bright red blood, because that would mean that they're alive. So this lady doesn't know how vampires work. But on the flip side, at least they don't fucking sparkle. Should have nailed her with a bolt, I chastised myself. Should have pressed the magic button, Jazz. I should have, but I hadn't, and there was no time to figure out why. My bare feet hardly touched the carpet as I sprinted for the bedroom door. Liliana's screams and growls spurred me on. I made it through the door, slammed, and locked it before she could reach me. It was a closer race than I thought. Just after the bolt shot home, she banged into the door, making it shiver on its hinges. I got a sudden vision of a Liliana-shaped indentation on the other side and laughed. That brought in another scream of rage and a series of attacks on the door that would eventually shatter it. I headed for the closet and the stairs it hid. Sorry, let me turn my phone down. I threw the door open and charged up the cold concrete stairs, taking them two at a time. Another door, sturdy and metal, with a bar across its middle that reminded me of the entryway to my high school's old gym, stood at the top. I hit it flying. For a millisecond I thought it might be locked and pictured myself bouncing up the handrail and down the steps like a bird who was just smacked into a third-story window. But the door opened easily, leading me to the most amazing rooftop I've ever encountered. My first brief impression of the garden was a feeling of bursting into fairyland. White lights had been strung in potted trees along the latticework walls that divided the rooftop into numerous small rooms. Somewhere running water accompanied the sound of my breathing. It smelled like spring, but my toes curled against the cold night air, and goosebumps rose like tiny mountain ranges along my arms. A quick hunt bagged me a concrete bench whose top wasn't attached to its legs. I lugged the seat to the door and wedged it under the handle so it couldn't be depressed. Maybe it would hold Liliana long enough for me to make a clean getaway. My escape route required me to cross the other side of the roof, so I walked through the garden rooms as quickly as I could, avoiding tables and benches where people would sit with their morning coffee when this cold spell snapped, never knowing the story unfolding on this very spot. Liliana's power snapped at my heels like a pipple at the edge of its chain. It reminded me of Umberto's, and I sure didn't want to be the next poor slob to keel over in a plate of linguine. I rushed through arbors thick with vines. I slipped past statues of angels, wind chimes that swayed dangerously close to song, an empty concrete bird bath that looked abandoned and forlorn. I'd made it about halfway across the roof when Liliana's power peaked and a sudden explosive noise halted me. Liliana's voice hit the air like a jet engine. "I am not just going to kill you," she screeched. "I'm going to tear your chest open and drink the blood directly from your beating heart." Hey! This is the crappy passage you read in the beginning. That's just gross, Liliana. Didn't your poor dead mama ever teach you any manners? I slipped to another section of the roof as she tracked my voice. Hopefully I could play mouse to her cat long enough to find the twin to the door she just destroyed. Then I'd run some more. The thought made me want to break something. I could confront her, of course, maybe even smoke her if she wasn't too fast or too strong, if my aim was true, but I realized, though I wanted to kill her, I couldn't. Bill would be the one to finish her. I found the door framed by hanging baskets and gently depressed the handle. Okay, now that detail makes sense because this lady has a tendency to put random-ass details all over the place. Nothing happened. It was locked. Okay, Jazz, you are now trapped on top of an 8-story building with a homicidal vampire. Time for plan B. Liliana's power settled on me like a thick fog. I began to sweat as I waded through it, somehow managing to reach the fire escape without making a noise. When I grabbed the rails to start my descent, I looked down and saw Liliana's limo parked under a streetlight. I only saw the car, but I couldn't believe she sent her goons home for the evening. Were they all huddled inside with the heat cranked, still trying to regain the warmth Phil had stolen from them earlier? Were they guarding my escape routes, waiting to grab me the moment I thought I was free? Why hadn't Liliana brought them with her? It seemed almost fair. No, not fair. Confident. She was just that sure one puny woman couldn't stand against her amazing superpowers. She hadn't brought reinforcements because she simply saw no point. I decided my best bet was to circle back to the door I'd come through. I managed to find my way through a maze of potted shrubs and outdoor furniture without making a sound. She keeps repeating that. Why not just say she's super stealthy in the very beginning and then let us assume that she is stealthily making her way through this area. Part of the twisted remains of a hammock peeked out from beneath the blown door. The opening it had left beckoned. I just decided to run for it when her voice froze me. I thought you might come back here. Shit. I wanted to bang my head against the wall, but figured that was part of Liliana's overall plan and decided to leave it to her. I turned around, my Lucille mask firmly in place. She held out a hand, her smile both condescending and triumphant. 3 dark blotches on her chest were all that remained of the bullets I fired. The ring, she said, wiggling her fingers to make me move faster. She had me on strength, speed, and pure evil intent, but I'm sure she expected me to cringe and shuffle, which is why my kick swept right up at the center of her body without a block or even a delay. It contacted her beneath the chin, driving her head backward and breaking her jaw from the sound of it. Off balance and staggering on her 2 high heels, Liliana's only move was to reach forward, try to regain her balance. I couldn't allow that. I kicked her 3 times in quick succession, contacting her high on the chest, moving her backward several steps each time. When her heels hit the lip of the roof, I jump kicked her right over the side. She fell loud and long, her body making a spectacular watermelon under the sledgehammer whump when it hit the pavement. Oh no, it wasn't over. People wouldn't be willing to pay such a high price for immortality if it didn't come with some major perks. Her screaming might have stopped when her body met the asphalt, and she'd be in no shape to demand anything more of me tonight, but she'd heal. Quickly. Bed rest and fresh blood would put her back on her feet by tomorrow evening. But for tonight, I had won. I peered over the edge of the roof. The headlights from a couple of stopped cars lit the scene like something out of a Hitchcock movie. Liliana's body sprawled on the street, as twisted and disjointed as a scarecrow's. One driver yelled into his cell phone while another checked her pulse. Liliana's car pulled up, screeching to a halt from its short trip around the block. All 4 goons piled out and went to work. 2 held off the protesting drivers with handguns, while the others grabbed the unconscious vamp by the wrists and ankles and carried her to the car, reminding me of the deer Albert and Dave used to haul out of the woods after a good morning's hunt. They'd barely gotten her stowed and driven off into the night when sirens announced the arrival of cops, who, having seen damn near everything pertaining to the supernatural, would probably believe every detail of the driver's stories. Considering the noise we'd made in the room before coming to the roof, I decided even my ID might not stand between me and a visit to the police station. Not a comfy thought with Vale due any minute and Dawn following him like a stray dog. I ran down the stairs, gritting my teeth against the pounding my poor feet were taking. When I got to the room, I went straight to my socks, pulled them on, and wrapped my jacket around my feet before punching into my phone the special combination of numbers that would provide me with some semblance of privacy when I talked. So she was barefoot the whole time? Not cool. It's not like Bruce Willis, okay? Ignoring the blood splatters on the wall, I stared hard at the drawer pull on the end table next to my chair while I waited for an answer. I got one on the 12th ring. That is so fucking random. Hello? Pete, it's Jasmine. Don't tell me you wrecked another car. Okay. Medium pause. I heard rustling, probably him checking out his bedside clock, because the next thing he said was, Do you know what time it is? It's after 5 a.m. here. Silence. I half expected him to start snoring. Get to the point, Parks. I didn't wreck the car. Spit it out, Jazz. Please don't yell at me. I'm not yelling. I know, but you might be. Soon. If you don't start passing on some real information soon, I'm going to yell at my way. Then you'll have guilt. Manipulator. Spill. What the fuck point was that? Just fucking tell him. You're a goddamn adult. You fucking woman. I ran a hand through my hair and got Sarah caught in some tangles. As I tried to free myself, I said, I pushed a vamp off a roof tonight. Not part of the mission, but acceptable. Not really. The cops are coming up here soon, and they're not going to believe I'm innocent when they see the bloodstains. Bloodstains? I shot her first here in the room, and her grooms came and took her away while I was still on the roof. So I have no proof she and I fought. Your ID could be faked. I don't have the time to talk myself out of the situation, Pete. Dawn's coming. Alright, let me talk to them. I heard sirens. They'll be here in a sec. In the meantime, don't you dare sing me a lullaby. Did this happen before? Did she sing him a lullaby? I wouldn't dream of it. I just wanted you to know we think one of the senators on our oversight committee might be dirty. They're politicians, Jazz. It kind of goes with the territory. You're tired, I get it. I told him about our suspicions, wondering how much really sunk in. The guy might actually still be asleep. Dave could do that. Carry on a perfectly logical conversation with you in the middle of the night and then not remember anything about it the next day because he'd been mostly asleep the whole time. Pete, are you awake? Yes, Jasmine, I'm awake. It's your fault too. I want you to remember that. Believe me, I will. And we've got the center of the thing covered from here, okay? If you get nosy and get yourself killed, I'm gonna have to put your kids through college or something. So do me a favor and steer clear. You know, last week Ashley was talking about getting her PhD at Yale, so I have to say I'm a little tempted. But don't worry, there's a reason I hired the best. Wow. Now I have to ratchet it up a notch. Keep deserving that remark. Hang on, somebody's at the door. I open it mid-knock. The cop on the other side looked slightly stunned that I had responded so quickly. Even more so when I handed him my badge and the phone and said, "It's for you." It took He took it like it might be rigged to blow and held it about 6 inches from his ear. "Hello?" he said while his partner hung back, his Glock out but pointing to the floor for the moment. The first cop listened for a while and then he gave me an amused look. I relaxed. When he chuckled, I started to fume. No doubt Pete was telling him all about my tendency to leave a trail of twisted cars and blood-spattered walls that a blind dog with the cold could follow. "Did she really?" asked the cop. He laughed harder and motioned for his partner to listen in on the call. All told, Pete kept them entertained for another 3 minutes and 25 seconds while I leaned against the wall and timed them. At 3:26, the cop handed me the phone and my badge. He wants to talk to you, he said. Then he nodded, headed out the door, and down the stairs with his partner close behind. "I take it I'm off the hook," I said as I shut the door. "Yep, thanks, no problem." We hung up. Since my toes still felt like icicles, I went into the bathroom, shucked my socks, plugged the tub, and ran in enough hot water to soak my feet. I could see the front door from where I sat, so I was aware of the chiseled marble look on Vale's face when he entered the condo a few minutes later. That all changed when he saw the blood on the walls. Dear Christ! He staggered sideways, caught his balance on the stove, and pulled his phone from his pocket with shaking fingers. "Jasmine, be all right. Please be all right," he whispered as he dialed, his face suddenly very human and extremely worried. He jumped about 3 inches off the floor. My phone rang, and I answered it. "Make it quick," I said. "There's somebody else in the condo with me, and he looks alarmed." He didn't say a word, just dropped his phone, came over, and picked me up off the edge of the tub. It's a little disconcerting being dangled effortlessly. Plus, I generally equate bear hugs with lumberjacks and friendly purple dinosaurs, not with suave, sexy vampires who savor a daily dose of necking. "I thought you were dead," he said. "Ah, that explained the momentous show of affection. So you knew Liliana was coming after me?" "I had a feeling." I let his evasion stand for now, but in my mind I drew the line. One more and I would raise hell. Or smarter, but less satisfying, ask him to come clean. He let me slip through his arms until my feet touched the carpet. Then he released me completely. I stepped back. Let me read these sentences for you, okay? He let me slip through his arms until my feet touched the carpet. Then he released me completely. I stepped back. Ignored the vast sense of loneliness that suddenly swamped me. Not ignored the vast sense of loneliness that suddenly swamped me. Fought the urge to touch him. Reassured myself I just hadn't Oh my god, this book is killing my brain. Fought the urge to touch him. Reassured myself I hadn't just hallucinated that embrace. "I'm sorry I left you. I suspected she would come after you, but not so soon. She has always coveted Sirlai, first because she was my wife and thought she deserved it, then because our sons were dead and she thought I did not." "So, you've never taken it off before?" "No, not for Liliana, not for anyone, until now." Oh god, oh god, oh god. I mentally slapped myself. Don't panic, Jazz. Every time you panic, all hell breaks loose. So, do not panic. "You're right. She came for the ring," I told him. "She demanded it from me." "What did you do?" "I shot her, then I pushed her off the roof." "Well, technically she kicked her off the roof." He smiled. Not the twitchy twitch, but a genuine full-face smile. "You must have really wanted the ring." I retreated behind the chair I'd snapped. I retreated behind the chair I'd napped in and buried my hands into the back because, frankly, I suspected there might be hyperventilating in my not-so-distant future, and I needed a strong base to lean on. I looked into his remarkable eyes, just now a warm honey gold with flecks of amber, and nodded. To be honest, I did want it. I do. I can't explain how honored I am to be wearing it. But also, to be honest, the whole deal terrifies me. And that is because I took a long look at the stitching on his collar. The urge to cower my way out of this conversation damn near primal. He and I had been tiptoeing around the subject so long, I suspected if I made us face it squarely, one of us would be required to cut and run. A perfectly acceptable reaction if you had a place to retreat to. Neither of us did. I've only been your assistant, your avar, for a while, I finally said, avoiding his gaze. I'm not exactly sure what I've agreed to, and yet I can't imagine any other kind of life. When you gave me this ring, when I gave you my blood, we've gone beyond anything I've ever experienced with another person. We're trusting the safety of our souls to each other. Just saying those words made me feel a little dizzy. There are 3 sets of ellipses in that fucking sentence. 3. I've been glossing over all the other goddamn ones, but really fucking 3? Are you serious? He raised my chin with a gentle finger. I winced as our eyes met. The look we shared pained me in its naked honesty. You are my avar, and I am your sever hamin. The intensity of that relationship has taken us beyond the bonds between co-workers or teammates. He waited for me to speak, his eyes hot with emotion. And, God help me, I wanted to say what he wanted me to say. But I couldn't. I was still too wounded. It seemed like a strange way to describe me. I'd never been in better physical condition, but it was the most appropriate word I'd found yet. After I lost Matt and my crew, Evie kept pushing me to put my feelings into words. She thought somehow that would make it all better, but I couldn't tell her how I felt. I couldn't tell her I felt like I should be bleeding from every pore. I couldn't say I felt like I'd been flayed alive, that when I looked into the mirror every morning, I couldn't believe my hair hadn't turned white overnight. It just wasn't close enough to the truth, so I didn't say anything at all. I understand. I believed him. There's only so much a person can go through, Vale. He regarded me seriously. There's only so much a person can go through alone, but I'll not ask you to do anything you cannot bear. So, I can keep the ring? It's yours, he said. No matter what happens, that will never change. Okay. That was fun and exciting. I feel like my brain's sludgy. Okay, I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.